Hi, in this exciting episode of Insider Investing, we are hosting Megha Tata, who's MD of Discovery in India. In this episode, we cover the transition that is happening in the media industry. We also talk about how influencers are impacting advertising, and in general, how Megha brings balance to the multiple things that she does with her life. Hi, Megha. This is a special episode of Insider Investing for us. For the very first time, we have an industry leader from media and advertising. One of the things that happened was when we were going through your profile and we were reaching out to you, I saw that you run Discovery. You're a president of the International Advertising Association in India. You are a biker. You are a yoga practitioner and you are an Isha volunteer. I was struggling to reconcile how all of these can fit into one CV. How do you make the time for this?
Well, thanks, Sandeep. First of all, such a warm welcome and a warm introduction. It is something which I've managed to do in whatever capacity I have, identified time to sort of focus on each of these things, because I'm of the opinion that one doesn't have to live a life of either or. It is an and world we live in, and it has to be an and life. And why can't I manage both, or multiple other roles which I love to play as well? So yeah, I think it is about having the right attitude, and that's what I bring to the table. And I always try to say, okay, got to do everything right. And the fact is that it's, you can't be perfect in everything. Like, you have to let go, and you get some, you lose some. So I might not be the best biker, I might not be the best executive, I might not be the best Isha volunteer, and I might not be the best yoga practitioner, but I enjoy every role I play. And I think that to me is the most important, that whatever you do it from the passion of it, the love of it, and you do it to your best capability, and then let the rest flow. So that's how I somehow managed to find time for everything.
But it's interesting you say that, that you have to enjoy what you do. And let's go a little deeper into that. It's today, there's so much pressure of performance on work. And even when you're doing something personally, I feel like there are some of us, me included, get very competitive about it. Like, karna hai to ekdam achhe se karna hai and all of that. And you seem to have a different philosophy. You're like, you have to like really revel in what you're doing. How did you come to that point? Like, because you've done so well, so I'm assuming that you are competitive as well.
Of course I am. And I'm not doing anything, like, especially my professional journey has been very, I've been ambitious and I've been competitive. But I came from a point of enjoying the journey than being too, as cliched as it might get, worrying about the destination.
Hmm.
And this is something I've spoken a lot about wherever I speak, is that I am, and I never tire of saying this, but you've got to be passionate about what you do, right?
Hmm.
And if you come from the point of passion, then it doesn't really matter. I mean, don't worry about, if I do this, I'm doing this because I want to do this,
Hmm.
I'm doing that because I want to achieve this. But just do it because you love it, do it because you're enjoying it, do it because you really feel that every day you want to get up and do something meaningful. So
Hmm.
that, if you come with that attitude, then I think anything, everything else is a byproduct. Everything falls into your lap in many ways. So I think I have been ambitious, and I continue to be, but it's not at the cost of getting, like, everything has to be kept aside, and I will just focus on getting my career ambitions right. And I think that's a waste of life.
Yeah.
That's a waste of time. It's one life you have. There's so much to do. I mean, even what, if you think, if you're alluding to the fact that I do a lot, I'm doing nothing. I mean, I'd love to do much more. So it's just that the timing, there is that much you can do to the table, but I know of people who can do even more, and there are people who can't even do one thing right.
Hmm.
So that's the choice you have to have, and that's the choice only you can make. And
Yeah.
I chose to play these multiple roles or indulge in some of these things because I said, I mean, life has to go on. And like John Lennon said, that, life will pass you by while you're making plans. I don't want to be in that space.
No, I love the fact that you talk about the passion and in the moment living it, because that's really when your best work also comes out, right? Sometimes we probably overthink a lot of stuff, as especially as a lot of our listeners who are working professionals, they think a lot about every action that they do and what it will mean in the long term. But sometimes just doing what feels right at the moment and enjoying it probably is probably the way to go. Yeah.
Exactly. And some might find it a bit too simplistic and say that, well, we try enjoying it, but still we have a lot to struggle with. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, whoever said life is a walk in the park? I mean, there is no utopia which exists. You have to create your own utopian existence, and you create your utopia. Now you create your place of happiness. You create where you are content, because
Yeah.
what makes you happy may not necessarily make me happy, right? And
Yeah.
vice versa. So then why does it have to be that one size has to fit all? But if you
It doesn't.
create, your own happy space and your balance,
Hmm.
you create your happy balance, or where you manage your professional and your personal roles, then it's your choice. I mean, you have a choice. The fact is that every human being on this planet has a choice to be what you want to be. But
Yeah.
if you choose to suffer, if you choose to make your life miserable, that's because you made that choice.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you can't blame everybody and the world at large that because of A, B, and C, X, Y, Z happened. I'm sorry. I mean, I don't believe in that. I mean, to me, I follow this thinking based, what my guru speaks, and that's I really believe in that concept. It's not just because he's my guru, but because I really believe in the concept. You have the choice to be what you want to be,
Yeah.
and so you really don't,
No, I can see the Isha thought process shining through across the Zoom call. But it's also interesting your own upbringing, Megha, happened across the country. You are an armed forces family member, grew up all over, as you said, Kashmir to Kanyakumari. How much of that informs your journey in media and advertising?
Well, I think it'll be a bit too, foolhardy of me to say that I knew exactly what I wanted to do when I was a kid traveling around the country with my parents. I wasn't. I was, in fact, at that time when I used to move from one city to the other, me and my sister used to always feel that our parents, our step parents, they would sort of, how can they take away from every 3 years some school,
Yeah.
new friends, and we don't like this. We used to cry every time we leave a city and pack our bags and move into another place. But I think in the hindsight, that really became a bedrock of who we are as individuals, both my sister and I. And I think the fact that there is no other better learning than life, and you when you travel, you
Mm,
know so much about people and culture, and uh, at that age you don't understand that this is good for you. But I think
yeah.
all what we absorbed as kids in different environments we worked and we lived and studied in, I think played a key role in making us as the individuals we are.
Hmm.
So I think that to me was a wonderful, hindsight, like I said, it was a wonderful experience. But the fact getting into media and entertainment industry was just by fluke. It was luck by chance, as they say, and right place, right time. Things just played out. There was no clarity I had at that stage what I wanted to do. But clearly, if I was to play my life all over again, I would not change anything. I would go through this The choices I made, pretty much the similar way. And so and life, of course, brought lots of things in place as well. But I made those choices. Some were good, some were very wrong, but they all added a sense of learning to me. So yeah.
But the interesting thing, like if you think about, and today probably we don't realize it, but there's this one big change that has happened in media. Today media is dominant, we see it all around. You're consuming media on your phone, on your TV and whatnot. But go back to 1992 and the early days, satellite television was just coming in. It was probably not as much of a hot sector as it is today. How has the industry changed, and maybe some parts of your journey also, right? You set up BTVI in India from scratch, I think almost from scratch. I think a very small market share to a very leading news channel. Talk to us about that whole experience of almost like that entrepreneurial journey within media.
Yeah, it's interesting how you put it. So when I started my journey, which was now almost 30 odd years ago, I think it was a very different world, clearly, right? There was only one television channel, which was Doordarshan. You probably were just born then. But we came from an industry where it was by and large led by newspapers. Okay, so
Mhm.
print was, the largest industry. There was no TV, there was no radio, and there was definitely no digital. So, in that environment, when Star happened, when Z happened, or actually the first international channel which made its inroads into the country was CNN,
Hmm.
and that's where the Indian audiences saw, a window to the world.
During the World War or the Iraq War,
Yeah,
probably. Yeah.
that's so that was where the first exposure that you can be sitting in India and watching, an international world play out,
Mhm.
was a huge change in the overall. Of course, it was very niche, but it was exciting. And
Hmm.
then when Star happened, and that completely changed the way people were viewing content. I mean,
Hmm.
to bring in international content like Bold and Beautiful and Santa Barbara, and that kind of content, which something which the country had never seen. And suddenly a certain strata of society was finding that, like, life was based on when Bold and Beautiful and Santa Barbara happened. I still remember people were making their social plans based on, like, I remember Bold and Beautiful was at 8 p.m. and Santa Barbara used to be at 8:30 p.m. And everyone said you either come at before 8 or you come after 9, because at 1.5 hours, like, this is my time to, there was like very bingeable kind of content. It was like the induction of soap opera into India, and that was a game changer for the industry. And that's when people started understanding the value and the international content. And then, of course, other players came, Z happened, Indian content happened, and the world completely changed. That's when you realize that, in hindsight again, that we were part of history being made.
Hmm.
At that time when we joined, all of us became with a motley crew, who were part of the, like I say, they were the original stars of Star. We didn't know we were making history,
Yeah.
but we enjoyed every journey of it. We learned through the way. We made a whole lot of mistakes. We created jargons which became industry norms, and that's a high, very, it's money can't buy high, really, and
Yeah. Yeah.
that's something you don't know you're doing it while you're doing it, frankly.
Correct.
But it's wonderful to know that we were part of that whole, the whole tectonic shift which happened in media consumption at that stage. But from then on till now, oh my God, has life changed, and how? It's got even more complicated, it's even more exciting, and it's even more challenging. And I think
Yeah.
that is where probably the overall, I guess, excitement lies for this industry right now?
Megha, I'm glad you think I'm that young, but Wonder Years changed my life.
I
So
did, okay.
I, I do remember that entire experience. We would come back home early from school. Otherwise, we would play cricket. But we came back home early just so that
What?
we could watch Wonder Years. But even lately there has been a dramatic shift in how media and how probably you create and deliver content, right? In the time that you've been running Discovery, there has been shift almost from, or what we think in e-commerce or startup world, B2B to probably a D2C kind of a shift that has happened, right? And increasingly now content is now not no longer one to many, it's many to many, because there are so many content creators. Earlier studios used to create content, networks used to create content. Today the guy on the street can create content and deliver it using YouTube. So talk about these two factors, the first being how content distribution changed for you at Discovery, and then this multi sort of shift in content creation where different people are creating content and consumed by different people.
Right. So Discovery again has been one of the media organizations which has been originally a linear business, like
Mhm.
broadcasters, television networks, huge businesses across the globe,
Mhm.
acquisitions happening around the globe, buying in linear television networks, the pay TV networks, the free to air networks. So it is a very television business, and I think like many broadcasters who realize that that there is a business of today and there's a business of tomorrow, and that transition had to happen by most of the people, by most media broadcasters, but they all happened in various stages of their journey, right? Some
Mhm.
people started earlier, some people later, and some people who haven't started have a difficult way to survive, and
Mhm.
some people shut down because they couldn't sort of manage to understand how to work on the potential opportunities in media industry. So I think for Discovery as well, it was about understanding that yes, we're a great network on linear business, but there is an opportunity in the D2C space. Like you rightly said, we were a B2B player, but
Mhm.
moving from B2B to D2C had to be done. It wasn't it wasn't a discussion. It was not an option. You have to get in. You had to get into it if you wanted to survive and thrive in this industry. So, and that's what happened. So we were probably one of the later entrants in that space. But much like in the linear world,
Mhm.
we have always carved out our niche. We've always been a complementary player. We're not true to my what I started in the beginning of this chat was that we're not an either or, we are an and as
That's
well.
right.
Like if you want, you may have a fix coming in from your general entertainment desires to watch that content, but you
Mhm.
also like to watch content like ours,
Mhm.
and we become the best platform to be a complementary platform into your daily content needs which you have. So
Mhm.
that way we are not competing, we are
Mhm.
actually complementing,
That makes
and
sense.
that is why we feel that Discovery Plus, when we launched, created that opportunity for even in the OTT space, because while this is how we did in the linear world, because while they were big mass channels fighting the big GEC wars, Discovery created its niche and continues to lead in that even today,
Mhm.
because there is an audience who would like to watch content like ours. And similarly, in the Discovery Plus world also, that's what has happened. So I think that's where the world is changing. Consumers, you know, consumer is the king, right?
Yeah.
She needs to be provided content wherever she wants to watch it, right?
Mhm.
You have to follow her wherever
Mhm.
she wants to,
Yeah.
right? So if she wants it on TV, or she wants it on OT, on a smart device, or she wants it to watch it on the go, then you've got to give it to her. You don't have a choice. So as a as a content creating platforms, we are all content creators in some form or the other. We have to be able to we have to connect that dot now. And our dot is direct. Earlier it used to be via, now it's a direct. So how now it's about optimizing that, and hence, in my view, content becomes even more critical player in the overall mix, because consumer is spoiled for choice. Social media has created enough and more opportunities to consume content of whatever they want. The duration of content is only reducing.
Yeah.
The ability to stay on to watch any content more than few seconds is like, people are saying, oh, it's boring because it's few seconds, if it's a minute long. So you're dealing in a very complicated environment, right? And so how do you make content sort of stand out will be a very integral decision, or an integral role to play for media houses to survive, because uh, everyone's creating great content, but
So
how do you sort of make that?
stand out and make it differentiated. Talking about that standing out, under your watch, Discovery pulled off a coup, which was to get a sitting head of state onto a show which is Into the Wild. How did you pull that off? Because it was just unheard of to see Prime Minister Modi, of all people, on a show with Bear Grylls in the jungles of India, swimming and rafting and whatnot. How did you manage to convince the government with that?
See, if I tell you, then I'll have to kill you.
Go for it. We are on Zoom, so
No, I'm just kidding. While it was just worked out well, I think at both ends, it was indeed a coup, and it was the first time, the head of a country was in that avatar, and I think people were really excited to see him in an avatar they had never seen before. So it really worked out well, and I really appreciate everyone who was involved. This was completely the team's doing to have put this whole thing together and make that come alive. Yeah, and it was also a breakthrough for Bear Grylls, because for him to, I think that became a big ground breaking content proposition in the country. In fact, that year when we showed it on our network, we became the number one network in the country. Like, it was unheard of that an infotainment genre can even beat the GCs. That was like unheard of. So in that slot specifically, we were number one, beating all the GEC channels. So that clearly, to your point, did say that sort of differentiated content does stand out. But it's also that you can't create differentiated content all the time. There are a few times where one idea sort of just works, and similar kind of promotion and idea might not work on any other platform. So sometimes there are these crazy algorithms and laws which takes place, which make certain things completely hit the ball out of the park. And so, but the fact still remains that you need to keep on experimenting, keep on bringing in content proposition which will keep that really spoiled consumer, giving him or her the reason to keep on engaged on you and your platform. So
that's right.
it becomes that much more tougher today to keep a consumer onto you than it was, say, a decade ago.
And I guess then that comes back to the fresh content, new ideas. In a sense, therefore, isn't it like more harder now for you to encourage that, like to get Discovery and the creative teams to start thinking beyond the usual? Because there's YouTube on the other side, which is competing for attention, and somebody out there in some part of the country is creating very innovative stuff without any of us knowing about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And which is why Discovery Plus became that platform for us. So in fact, while Discovery stood for what it did, the Plus is what gave us the opportunity to explore so much more. So there is a whole lot of content on the platform today which we've never shown on TV before, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And lot of genres we have explored which we've never sort of done original content for. Like
Mm.
the recent show we launched called Say Yes to the Dress. Now it is our international IP, which is a very successful IP on TLC. Now,
Mm-hmm.
TLC has a very limited play, you know, it's very, very niche.
Right.
But we created an Indian version of Say Yes to the Dress, which is all about the big fat Indian wedding, and the bride has to choose a dress of her choice for her
Interesting.
one of her
Mm.
events, one of the you know customs, whatever they have, whether sangeet ho, shadi ho, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's doing really well, you know,
Mm.
and people are consuming it, and it helps us bring in new audiences. Like for example, Discovery Plus has a very what had a very male skewed audience profile, right, because
Mm.
the content was such. But we
Mm.
started exploring in lifestyle content. We created this show called Star versus Food, where we had the top people from various walks of life, Bollywood, sports, and social influencers, who came and created some fabulous khana, you know, and
Mm.
guided by some celebrity chefs. So
Mm-hmm.
that was a big exploration we did. We did really well. Now,
Mm-hmm.
Say Yes to the Dress, which is in the wedding space, is something we're doing, and let's see how that plays out. And initial reaction is very positive. In fact, one of the song we launched, the promotion song called Sajna, Say Yes to the Dress, which was done by Badshah,
Oh,
already
okay.
hit
That
some
is,
15 million new views.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, so you heard that song?
Yeah, I've heard the song and it's interesting. Like, so crazy collaboration happening. You have Discovery or TLC on one side, then you have Badsha, then you have the show. I think very interesting stuff happening here.
That's
Yeah.
how you have to play, right? You have to keep creating interesting opportunities and engagement of content to keep that consumer happy.
Yeah, yeah. And the same thing, I guess, for advertising too, right, Megha? In some ways, we are used to seeing TV commercials, etc. But now suddenly there's this whole influx of influencers. Every day we are asked, how, as a wealth tech platform, are we engaging with influencers and working with them? How is advertising then changing? Because again, the agency approach on one side, and here these influencers who are independent creators, a massive change there too, right?
Absolutely. In fact, the fact is that, you know, there was a time when celebrities were influencers. Today, the influencers are the celebrities.
Yeah, that's a great way of saying it. Yeah.
So that's how the whole ecosystem has changed, and
Mm.
they play a very critical role in actually making or breaking a brand or a product or a launch of anything. And a lot of brands and even so media brands are using those influencers to engage with them, to bring in to drive a certain point. So
Mm.
yes, they will, and that is a fact we all have to acknowledge. There's no point fighting this. You
Mm.
have to embrace this change
Mm.
and use it to your advantage.
Mm.
And so it is tougher for, you know, marketers and advertisers, agencies, to now compete with them. They have to
Yeah.
find smarter ways to find solve, because brands find it far more engaging if you are able to, if an influencer is able to create content which is refreshingly different than that 30-second play, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not taking away the value of a 30-second commercial requirement, but again, it is the evolution of the industry, and I think we need to find solves. The problem, of course, is that like anything new which happens, one, there is limited data to prove what's working and how it's working,
Mm.
you know. So
Mm.
there's a lot of gut which goes in, while you can digital is a very data analytics driven medium, but
Mm.
sometimes you still don't know what you
Mm.
paid for, like what is your ROI happening on that. And that's a debate and questions which a lot of marketers are asking today.
Yeah.
And that's where I mean, we've got to see how that plays out, you
Yeah,
know.
but I guess over time, probably measuring systems will get created on top of this influencer layer, right? Because that's what probably happened when initially television commercials started, and then later on there used to be ways to measure how they performed over a period of time.
True. Yeah. Yeah. We
But,
hope that there
but
is.
is it too early to call that this is the end of the Mad Men style advertising agency?
No, no, not at
No.
all. Nothing and nothing. See, that's the thing about most of the people, when televisions came, they said newspaper will die. Then when radio came, they said TV and newspaper will die. Then when digital came, they said TV, newspaper, and radio, everything will die. Nobody died.
Yeah, everything
Everyone,
flourished.
everything is flourishing, everything is coexisting. I mean, the last report, if you've seen, both TV and digital have grown in India. And
Hmm.
India is one of the few countries which is showing this parallel movement of growth and
Hmm.
will continue to grow, because like I've said in the past, there are many Indias within India.
Correct.
No, you cannot, one size cannot and will not fit all. And India is one of the countries where you live in multiple centuries at the same time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you are talking, there is a set of audience who would like to watch content which talks about child marriage, and
Hmm.
there is certain audiences who want to talk about gay marriage. Now
Hmm.
you are that's the wide spectrum of content creation you want to put out there.
Hmm.
So there is an opportunity for everyone to survive. It's just that you have to find a sustainable business proposition.
Hmm.
We all want to do lots, but is it practical? Where's the money? Where's the revenue going to come from? Because the revenue is the biggest, the monetization of the digital platform is the biggest challenge right now.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely. And
that has to see.
with all of this change, how should like somebody who's building a career now in the media space think about it? How much like should they index very heavily on the digital systems? Should they get some experience in the studio system or the network system? How, like today, if you were to do it all over again and think about it, and I know you said that you live in the moment, you don't plan it, but how should a young upcoming professional think about her career in media now?
Well, I think definitely you have to acknowledge that digital is the way, like it is the present. It's not even the future, it is the present.
Hmm.
So if you're coming into this industry, that experience and understanding is an important part. I mean, we came from a generation where we graduated from one medium to the other.
Right.
My kids are born in this medium. Like for
Hmm.
them, it's normal and natural to consume social media, and so they are far more proficient in that than I am. I have
Hmm.
learned my way, but they were born with it, right?
Hmm.
So there's a fundamental approach to it, and that's the audience we are going to be catering. If you look at the large part of our country, it is in that age group.
Yeah.
And if you're going to cater to that kind of audience, you need to talk in their language, you need to walk that talk. And hence, anybody coming into this industry who feels that I don't need to understand the digital ecosystem is being a bit naive. And
Hmm.
I think so understanding that is important. And I think also understand what the opportunities of the future are.
Hmm.
So there are a lot of conversations happening about, say, AR, VR, how
Yeah.
that's going to
The
sort of
metaverse, as they now call it.
metaverses, yes. So now how will that play out in the overall content consumption ecosystem is something, would be interesting to see. There is no data right now. Right now, these are conversations, but worthwhile to have an eye and a ear on that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Who knows? In the next Into the Wild, we ourselves might be in the wild.
In the
So
wild, right? Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely. No, no, very interesting, Megha. And I think there's a lot of change that is happening. You personally have been at the forefront of it, driven a lot of it. Uh, and how is that this whole meditative approach of and yoga helped you in this journey? Has it been like a sort of a grounding in some sense, or is it something that you do on the weekend and has very little bearing on your day-to-day life?
No, actually, on the contrary, Sandeep, I think, I mean, my um, journey on this path began about, I think, 7, 8 years ago or so. And I always talk about this again, that I wish it had come much earlier in my life. It completely changed the way I see things and I do things. And professionally as well, I have grown as an individual, that as I have as personally. And I think it is, to me, yoga is a way of life. you know
Mm-hmm.
Yoga is not about finding time to do a certain set of exercises. That is exercise.
Mm-hmm.
Yoga is just being the way you are. And that's yoga. Like, I am yoga right now. I'm doing yoga right now. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and what does that mean to me is that how you are as an individual, which is what I started in the beginning, is like the choice you have to be who you are. And that is of how, like, you have the ability to be in a particular way, because you then create uh, an aura around you, and the response you have, and the individual you become, the decisions you make, how you interact with people, your response to what has come back, this is all interconnected.
That's right.
So for me, that is just the way it is, and it is what it is. And and that has sort of built me as an individual. It's amazing that ever since I started this journey, how I have been able to do so much more in the same 24 hours. Earlier, I used to get all so stressed out, and knotted up, and there's so much to do. How will this happen? Now I'm doing far much more in the same limited number of hours we all have in a day, and it doesn't sort of drain you out completely. Of course, you have your moments, you're human and all of that, but I think it just is a very integral part of every human being to have a certain drop of spirituality in yourself, because that is an integral part. People seem to feel that that's okay, that's I'll do when I retire. My parents can do that, my grandparents can do that. I don't mind coming on a weekend and go on a weekend, be a weekend yogi or something like that. But that is not that is recreation.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is also, you can do that, sure, but that's not yoga.
No, it's
And so
it,
that's how I'm like, sorry, I'm just like a big proponent and a strong believer, because I live that life every day.
and it helps you do better, I guess.
Really.
And that's probably what's important. Megha, one thing we do all ask all our guests as we all, sign off is, uh, how have you been investing the surplus capital that you have? Do you actually get involved? Are you sort of you step back and let somebody else do it? What have been the learnings for you around investing?
So I am I do have people who guide me, and I believe them. The biggest guide in my life is my husband, of course, who has been a big sort of supporter in helping me carve my destiny in terms of investments and things like that. But I guess, like most nascent investors, I also I invest in equity and debt and some bit of properties. Sort of you balance, you create these buckets, and you just
Yeah.
make sure that you're well balanced in those buckets, and so that if anything goes up and down, you're averaging out all right. So that sense of basic common sense I bring to the, I work on. And of course, I do have professional help to guide me through that journey as well, because I'm not very self financially trained in that sense. So yeah, I do get some help on that.
And you're so good at what you do that it's probably the right thing to do, to leave it to a professional. Megha, what I'm taking away is this whole sense of balance that you bring from your life, from your journey, and what you're doing at one point of time, being able to achieve so much. It's really incredible to have you on this show. Thank you for taking the time, and I really feel that we took away a lot from this. Really appreciate this, Megha.
Thank you, Sandeep. Thank you so much for considering me to be on this platform, and really appreciated this chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you.